Okay, so today we'll be looking at statement of the problem, and we all know that it's another important part of the research writing. After the background, this is what comes next after the background, and just like from the word statement of the problem. So, what does statement of the problem simply means? How does it look like, or let me say, how should it look like? What are the things you should look out for? Why is it important, etc., etc., etc. That we'll be discussing today. And by the end of the class, we will have a classwork also. I will look at how we can do it, but let's just proceed. At least let's start. So, yes, statement of the problem in educational research is what we're looking at today. I'll be sharing my slide at the end of the class too, so we can have access to the material. Let me just take it to the first thing first. So, first of all, I'm going to start with this. There's something we call a research problem. A research problem. I won't spend more time on this because while talking about the background in our previous classes, we kind of talked about something like this. We talked about something like this. But anyways, I will still go over it a little bit for the sake of people that were not in class that day or they missed that session or you have forgotten whatever reason. I'll just go over it. All of us know that every research. Sorry, somebody's mic is on. Please, you are distracting the class. Thank you. So all of us, don't let me assume that all of us. Okay, let me just say this. Let me put it this way. Research is all about solving problem. You solve a problem, you did a research on it, and you give us recommendation on how the problem can be solved. Basically, that's what I research. Or we have different type of research anyways. If you remember our first class, I will recommend you go to YouTube to go and watch the video properly. If because I won't be able to cover much on it, like I said. If I want to go over that again, I'll be spending too much time on that. We have different type of research. We'll remember our class. We talk about the four types. So, but in summary, let me just brush it. Research is all about solving problem. You are curious about something, or you saw a problem, you carry out a research on it, and you bring recommendations or suggestion on how that problem can be solved. Something like that. That's what research is all about. Like I'm putting it in a simple way, like a simplest way. Now, there's something called research problem, and this is what is on our screen. A research problem is a specific issue, difficulty, contradiction, or gap in knowledge. Something that is unknown, unresolved, or poorly understood. A problem can be investigated systematically. So the thing is self-explanatory to an extent. So it's a specific issue, difficulty, contradiction, or gap in knowledge. Something that is unknown, unresolved, or poorly understood. That's what it is. So a key question is say your research begins with a genuine curiosity about an unresolved issue. Yes. Something like it's as simple as um, students are failing WAEC every year. Or don't let me say WAEC generally, that would be too broad. Students are failing mathematics every year in WAEC in Lagos. That's a problem. And so why are students what's it called failing this particular subject? We have issue of teachers. Maybe teachers are not competent enough, or there are no enough instructional materials to teach them in schools, or let me look at another, or maybe students are used to um, more of social media. I mean, they are using their gadgets too much. Maybe they are not reading properly, or what? Should we recommend a new textbook? Maybe all the schools in Lagos are using a particular textbook, and maybe the textbook is not doing justice to the explanation or whatever. Should we recommend another textbook? After all, there are different publishers that publish mathematics textbook, etc., 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 etc. I can list more for us. That is a problem you are noticing. Then you are carrying out research on, on how to solve that problem, so that next year or next 2 years, whatever, students will not fail that particular subject again. Because that's even a problem. Because why are students passing English, passing biology, another subject, and they're failing mathematics? That is a problem, right? So that's the research problem. Now, we're going to statement of the problem. I'm still coming. Let's proceed. So this slide says, what is not a research problem and what is a research problem? I have like 4 examples here. Example 1 on the left here says, I want to study teaching methods. That is not a research problem. And this is why it's not a research problem. It said, too broad, no specific issue identified. Yes, the example I gave, I was a bit detailed. I was talking about subject, WAEC, Lagos. I was kind of detailed more on location to particular subjects. how will I call it, a particular exam, not just all exams, a particular about your exam, WAEC, something like that. Am I even particular about location in Lagos? It doesn't have to be the whole of Lagos in some cases. So it might be maybe Yaba only, or let me say Lagos West Senatorial District, something like that. It doesn't have to be the whole, or let me say Lagos have what we call educational district. Let me just use that. Lagos Educational District 4 or Lagos Educational District 3. So that means in other part of Lagos, other educational districts, they are passing, relatively, they are not failing. But in your own particular educational district, you discover that they are failing. And that is a problem. So back to this example on the screen. The example here, a non-example says, I want to study teaching method. And why it is not a research problem is because it is too broad and no specific issue identified. Second one, students are lazy. So this is not a research problem too, because no value judgment, no evidence, it's not evidence-based. Why are students lazy? You don't really have an evidence to prove that students are actually lazy. How will you say students are lazy? Can you prove it to us that students are lazy? So if you can't prove it, then that is not a research problem. Another one, we need more technology in schools. So that is a solution, not a problem, actually. That doesn't sound like a problem. That is a solution. That means you're already concluding already. That one shows that you have already figured out the solution we need to a particular problem. That's not a problem, Sha. That one is the solution. Right? And the next one says the effect of X on Y. No, that X and Y is just pseudo. It's pseudo in the sense that it's just is an example to say that the X can be anything, the Y can be also be anything. So that's why I call it pseudo. So this one say a research question, not a problem statement. So that one is more of like a research question. What is the effect of so or so? Yeah, that's what the X and Y means. And that sounds like that doesn't sound like a problem statement. That is a research question. We are still coming to research question, but not today anyways. That's another topic for another day. Let's proceed. Statement of the problem now. Let us define what a statement of the problem means. A statement of the problem is a clear, concise description of the issue that your research will address. Again, a statement of the problem is a clear, concise description of the issue that your research will address. It justifies why your study is necessary and what it will contribute. Let me go over it again. Statement of the problem is defined as a clear, concise description of the issue that your research will address. It justifies why your study is necessary and what it will contribute. Now, if you remember, we're talking about the background. Like I said earlier, I'm not able to cover it much. For people that missed it, I'm sorry, but I will say you should go and check the YouTube link. If you don't have it, if you don't have the our YouTube page, please, you can message me privately after the class. I can just send it to you. But I know everybody should have it anyways. Back to what I was saying. If you remember in our background of the study, when we're talking about background, that day, there's a particular pyramid that we showed us on how to write the background of the study. And if you notice the last part of that pyramid, which is like the last paragraph of your background, that paragraph, what we're saying in that paragraph is that it must justify why you are doing this study. Now, what statement of problem does basically is that it broadens everything. So it's like a description of the issue your research is addressing. Don't forget earlier, I said research is about solving problems. So now, what is your research addressing? What is it focusing on? That's what statement of problem is talking about. Now, and what it does for that is that it justifies why your study is necessary and what will it contribute. In the sense that, let's say for instance, back to the example I gave, students are failing WAEC in Lagos State. Let me say Lagos Educational District 4. Students are failing WAEC, mathematics in particular. I'm trying to center on something now. Mathematics, WAEC, Lagos State or Lagos Educational District 4, whatever. Now, I'm carrying out a research. Why is my research necessary? My statement of problem justify why my research is necessary. That's what statement of problem does. It will justify why my research is important and what my research will contribute. Because don't forget, if you remember that pyramid, I wish I can show it. I don't have it here again, but maybe I can send it to the group later. I can check my phone so I should find it. Anyways, if you remember the steps in that pyramid, one of them says something like, what will happen if this problem continues? Like, there's a problem first. This is what people have done on it, something like that. Then there's a particular part that says something like, what will happen if this thing keeps on happening? What will happen? Because there's a problem, right? We have seen that there's a problem. But is the problem a kind of problem that if we leave it for a while, it will solve itself, or something we just push it out? If it is something that can solve itself, let me put it that way, then there's no need to do research on it now. Do I need to do research on it? Let's say, for instance, I'm looking for something. There's a problem. Let me just be general now. Something specific is not coming to my head for that. There's a problem, and I don't really need to do anything about it. It will still go by itself. It will go by itself. Then I don't need to do any research on it like that now, since it will go. But there are some problems that if you leave it like that, it will keep getting worse, something like that. So if you know that something will keep getting worse, then we need to do research on it so we can prevent that problem from escalating. Because if it escalates, then there's a big problem. For instance, students fail WAEC, like the WAEC example, I think I will just use the example almost throughout the class. Last year, the rate of failure was 38%. I'm just saying. This year, it is now 42%. Let me use 3 years ago. 2024, it was 38%. 2025, it was 42%. 2026, it is 43%, or maybe 45%. You can see that's a problem, that's a pattern. So it's showing us that this thing might keep on getting worse. In fact, it's not that it will keep on getting worse, because that means something is happening. That is a call for research. So anyways, the statement of problem justify why your research is necessary and what your research will contribute. So now, don't forget, at the end of research, all of us, at least, maybe during our undergraduate thesis, we know that at the end of the whole research, one of the things we put at the end is recommendation. You recommend at the end of the day. Of course, you are not recommending here in the statement of problem yet, but you are trying to say that after identifying the problem, after I've explained the statement of the problem, justified the research and all of that, this is what my research will contribute. My research is going to contribute this to solve this problem. Anyways, so now what is the purpose of writing the statement of the problem? Don't get me wrong. This is not purpose of the study. This is just purpose of the statement of the problem, because there should be a purpose for it. Why should we put it inside the research? 4 things basically listed here. 1, it justifies the study. Don't forget, it justifies study. Why should we take your study serious? Why is this study necessary? It justifies your study. That's what the statement of the problem is. It justifies your study. Because what if another person has done a study on this same problem, and you are trying to come up with another study again on this problem? Why do you think your own is better? Or why do you think your own is needed? Don't let me say better, needed. If somebody has done that same research on that same problem also. So your statement of problem should justify why your own. So your own might not be, the person that did this research initially, a similar research, did it in educational district 2. My own is in educational district 4. Your own might be like that. Your own might be, somebody that did the same research like this, did it in biology for biology students. My own is in mathematics. Just justify why your own study, why you're doing your study. That's what it basically does. Or maybe the research might not even be in Nigeria. A similar exam, WAEC, for instance, I think, like I said, I will use this example almost throughout. WAEC is not only written in Nigeria, it is written in Ghana, it's written in Gambia, I think, Sierra Leone, I think, something like that. So maybe a similar exam must have been done in Sierra Leone, and but they've not done it in Nigeria. That's why I'm doing this research. Something like that. Your statement of problem justifies your results. That's number 1. Number 2, it guides your research design. It guides the research design. The research design is talked about under the methodology in chapter 3. We are not covering that today, but yes, your statement guides your research design. 3, it helps reader understand the gap. Yes, every research has a gap. So it helps us to understand the gap of the research gap. We mentioned this too. Like I said, this thing is more explanatory in our previous classes. Please check it. And then last, it focuses on the research. Yes, I don't think I need to add this anyway. I think I will have called it 3. Focuses on the research. Yes, the main problem is to focus on the research. Now let's proceed. Now I'll give us a framework for writing a standard, a well-structured, a well-written statement of the problem. This is a framework that works, and I call it the ISIG framework. ISIG framework. The I stands for ideal situation. And what does it mean? What should be happening? What should be happening? The S stands for situation gap. What is actually happening? The second I stands for issue or consequence. Why this gap matters? And the last one, goal of research, what your research will do. This is how your statement of the problem should follow. In fact, some people will say, I don't know, I don't think it's a universally agreed pattern. But some people say something like, your statement should be 4 paragraphs. Anyways, like I said, it's not something that is universally agreed on. But let's even say in parallel word, it is 4 paragraphs. Let's say your I should be the first paragraph. Your second I, your S, or sorry, should be the second paragraph. Your I, the third I should be the third paragraph, and the G should be your fourth paragraph. Anyways, what I'm trying to say in essence is that this structure is how your statements should follow each other. The first part, don't let me now call it paragraph now. Like I said, it doesn't have to be 4 paragraphs because I don't think it's usually agreed. The first part here should talk about the ideal situation. What should be happening? What should be happening in education? What should be happening in a computer classroom? What should be happening in a mathematics classroom? What should be happening with the result of students in whatever. Depending on the topic you decide to choose now, I'm trying to be broad. I'm not trying to narrow on one particular topic. What should be happening? What should be happening generally? Now, the S now shows the gap. What is actually happening? So we're supposed to be having this, but we're having that. So that means there's a problem. So that is what the next part talks about. What is actually happening? Then the third one is the issue or consequence. Why this gap matters. Like I said earlier too. What if we leave it like this? What will keep on happening? Right? Like why this gap matters? Why is this thing a big issue? Why is this thing calling for concern? Like I said earlier, the example I gave on WAEC, what should be happening is that students should be passing WAEC regularly. I'm just like easily passing mathematics easily because mathematics is important. You need to pass mathematics to be able to study medicine, study this, study that. I'm just saying examples like that. That's what should be happening, right? Now, what is currently happening is that students are failing. Last 2 years, they got this particular a percentage of students got this particular grade. Last year, a percentage of particular students got this grade, something like that. Then you keep on showing. Now, why this gap matter? This gap matters because if we leave it like this, something like this will keep on happening. This will happen. This will happen. This will happen. Students will get a lot of this will happen. This is why the gap matters. Then the last one is the goal of the study. What your research will do. So this is what my research is now coming to come and do. Basically, all in all, what your statement of the problem does is to buttress your background. That's what I would say. It buttresses your background and it justifies why you are even doing this research. That's why it follows the background. The moment you have written the background, the statement is the next thing because it justifies the whole of the research. Why are you doing this research? Why are you stressing yourself? So your statement justifies why you are stressing yourself. That's as simple as that. Now, I'll give us, I said the ISIG framework. Now, this is an ISIG framework in motion. If you look at the screen, you see this. It says ideal situation, issue, goal. Now, let's take it one after the other. Ideal. The national policy on education emphasizes continuous assessment to improve learning outcome, right? So this is what should be happening, right? Now, this is the situation, what is happening. However, most secondary school teachers in Ilorin rely exclusively on end of term examinations. Now, you can see there's a problem now. The national policy on education says there should be continuous assessment to improve learning outcome, right? That's what should be happening. The policy says that there should be continuous assessment. That means there should be test, exam, regular continuous. Even after every class, there should be an assessment to assess what you have done so far. But teachers in Ilorin, secondary school teachers, that's why this thing is more difficult. You can see, secondary school teachers in Ilorin, not just all the teachers. Secondary school teachers rely exclusively on end of term. So they are just assessing students just once in the whole term. That's the problem. That's what's currently happening. And of course, we all know what will happen. You will not know who is doing well, who is not doing well until term ends. And you will not have enough time. You will not be able to make adjustments because the time has ended already. So next time we are teaching another set of topics again. That's the problem, right? Now, the issue now says this leads to delayed feedback, increased test anxiety, and stagnant student performance. This is the issue. Now, that means that because they are not doing what the policy says, this is what will keep happening. This leads to delayed feedback, increased test anxiety, and stagnant student performance. Now, goal of your research. This study will examine barriers to implementing continuous assessment and develop a practical guide for teachers. Again, you are justifying your research here now. You are saying this study will examine barriers to implementing continuous assessment and develop a practical guide for teachers. Barriers to implement continuous assessment, because one of the reasons why the teachers might be avoiding continuous assessment, they just wait the end of the term because they are feeling like, oh, stressful, Jare, don't let us stress ourselves. I'm just assuming for them, I don't know. They don't stress ourselves. We don't need to be doing assessment every time, assessment test. We don't need to do better. Let us do exam for them at the end of the time, everybody is fine, everybody goes home. something like that. Maybe they have large numbers in class and they feel like, how will I be marking every time? Something like that. It might be anything. I'm just trying to say it might be anything. Now let's proceed. So you are examining the barrier of implementing continuous assessment. So the reason why they are not implementing it, you want to examine it, right? Now you want to develop a practical guide for teachers so that they can be able to implement a proper continuous assessment. You can see that's a justifiable research, right? So that means you want to take them back to the ideal, which is the I. That's why I call it the ISIG model. You want to take them back to the ideal so that they can be able to follow what the policy says, because the policy says there should be continuous assessment to improve learning outcome. And while you are teaching, you are supposed to improve the learning outcome. So if you are not improving your learning outcome, you are not actually meeting your target as a teacher. So, anyways, that is ISIG in action. Now, how can you evaluate if your statement of the problem is properly written? Okay, I've written my statement of the problem and I follow the ISIG model. How can I know if I have done it so well? And I will give us what we call the final criteria. Final, FINER. So the F is the feasible. Can I realistically investigate this? So what I've written so far, is it something that is realistically achievable? Something like that. I says interesting. Do I genuinely care about this problem? Now, if you look at the example I gave, the ISIG in action, it cares about the problem. Teachers are not, Teachers are not doing the continuous assessment properly. And you as a researcher, you are now justifying, you are first examining the barrier, why they are not, why they are not doing proper continuous assessment, and you are suggesting a framework that can make teachers do it. So that means you care about the problem. So that means you should be interested. Are you interested in the problem? Do you really genuinely care about the problem? That's the I. Novel, does this address a real gap? Now, what you are suggesting, is it addressing the gap? Is he actually going to take them back to the ideal, like I said earlier? Because the original is the ideal. What should be happening? That's one. That's N. Then E, ethical. Can I study this without harming participants? Yes, this is very important. That's why we use to have ethical inside research. You should be in, what's it called? Chapter 3. You should be like a separate part in chapter 3, the methodology, right? But after writing your statement, like I said, you can now justify it. You can now check if you have done it a nice job by checking the ethical aspect of it. Is this thing properly done without, you cannot carry out this research without harming participants? If I will have to harm participants to get maybe something out of them, maybe interview them or questionnaires or whatever you want to use to get your response from them, or the way you want to do the research, if it's going to harm your participant, then that means your statement is not valid and you need to go and work on it. Find a better way to go about it. Then R, relevant. Does this matter to educational policy or practice? If it's not going to matter at the end of the day, then why do the research? Like I said, this is just a framework to follow up if you actually have done a nice job in your statement or not. But don't forget, don't mix it up. The ISIG model is how to write your statement. The final model is how to know if your statement or problem is properly done. I hope you are following, class. Class, I hope you are following.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes,
I want to be sure.
sir.
Yeah?
I am.
Okay, man. Okay. So let's proceed. Like I said, I will give us a couple of classwork today. We are going to do a couple of classwork, but let's just proceed. Now, common mistakes. We are going to be looking at a couple of mistakes that people do when they're writing a statement of the problem. This is number one. Common mistake one, too broad. Your statement should be broad. It should focus on one singular thing. Let's use this example. Now, the quality of education in Nigeria is poor. You know why it's broad? In fact, I should have found something to cover this. But anyways, I'll just show us. This is our first time interacting with something like this. So the example this person is saying that the quality of education in Nigeria is poor. Now, why is a problem? Too massive, no single study can address this alone. Yes, Nigeria is a big country. There are different parts in Nigeria. And in fact, every part of Nigeria is kind of unique in the sense that to start with in Nigeria, we have something we call geopolitical zone. The educational challenge in the north is not the same in the south. In fact, that north we're not talking about. The educational challenges in northwest and northeast is different in a way, you know. Let's even now put the north together. Let's even say the north is together. the North and South is not the same academically. If you put both in education, in terms of education, it's not the same. We all know this anyways. North have more of out of school children, low quality of teachers, competent teachers, and something like that. They have large classroom problem. South have that too anyways. But what I'm trying to say is there are some problems peculiar to the North that you will hardly find something like that in the South. If you find it, it will be minimal. There are problems peculiar in the South, which you will find very rare in the North, something like that. So when you are saying quality of education in Nigeria is poor, that is too massive because no single study can address this alone. Trust me. Your own shall just focus on a particular part of Nigeria. In fact, depending on your study anyway, if it is like a PhD now, you can cover like a region in Nigeria, let's say the whole of Southwest for PhD. That's still normal. For an undergraduate research, that could be too much for you for an undergraduate. For undergraduate research, you just focus on maybe a district, even a state. I feel like it's too much for an undergraduate anyways, but I'm not the lecturer, I'm just saying. But let's proceed. This is why this is a problem. It's too broad. So your statement should not be too broad. You should focus on one thing. And this is an improved one. Look at the improved example. Say the pass rate in senior secondary mathematics in Kwara State has declined from 45% to 32% over 3 years. This study investigates the relationship between content, knowledge, and student performance in algebra. Can see it's focusing on something, focusing on mathematics, focusing on one state in Nigeria, focusing on senior secondary school students. Now it's showing a result. Yes, it's showing a decline in the particular. So it has studied the last 3 years results, said drop from 45% to 32%. And now it's now focusing on why this thing is dropping, which is what? Teachers' content knowledge and student performance. And then in algebra, like just a topic in mathematics. Apparently, anybody carrying out this must have studied that. Algebra comes out every year in senior secondary school mathematics, something like that, whatever. But this is a better written statement of the problem, not a broad one like saying quality of education in Nigeria is poor. What if some states are doing well and some states are not doing well? That can happen everywhere. So, but if you put everybody together in one basket because it's a country, then it's still wrong because that's not a proper research. You cannot do the research for the whole country. You can only be specific about your own place. That's a common example, common mistake people make while writing statements of the problem. Don't make it too broad. That's the first thing. Let's go to mistake 2. Not researchable. Yes, there are some things that are not researchable. Yes, and let's take this. Look at the example. Teachers are not motivated because they are lazy. Teachers are not motivated because they are lazy. Now, why this one is not researchable is because there's no way to measure laziness actually. Laziness is a value judgment, not observable fact. Research must deal with measurable variables. How can you measure if somebody is lazy? How? Let's just think about it. How can you measure if somebody is lazy? There's no way to measure it. So that thing is not researchable. So saying teachers are not motivated because they are lazy is not researchable. And that is not, putting that kind of statement inside your statement of problem is just not, that's a mistake anyways. So let's look at the improved example. Say preliminary interview suggests that low salary, lack of resources, and poor administrative support may contribute to teachers' low motivation. This study will systematically examine these factors. That is a properly written statement of the problem. You can see it's looking at a couple of factors that might be responsible for teachers' low motivation. So that means the person doing this has observed that teachers are not motivated. That is a problem. Teachers are motivated. And we know that when teachers are motivated, of course, they will not teach well in class. Students will not, learning objectives will not be met. Example like that. Now, but saying that they are not motivated because they are lazy is vague. It's not researchable because it's too broad. It's too, I don't want to say it's too broad. There's no way you can measure laziness, so it's not researchable. So the improved example here is here. So looking at a couple of factors like low salary, of course, if the salary is too low, all of us, we like money now. So nobody will motivated. Lack of resources. You don't have resources to work. So why should I, how will I call it? Why should I be motivated to work? I don't have, let's say for instance, I'm an ICT teacher and there's no computer laboratory to teach my students computer, something like that. How will I be motivated to work? Lack of resources. And I cannot do it, and I cannot fund that project. I cannot buy a laptop for every student in my class. You can see. So there are poor administrative support. Maybe the administrators, the management of that school are not in support, not helping the teachers enough and all of that. That might lead to low motivation also. Then you're not saying the study is systematically examining these factors. So, right, that is the properly written one. Let's go further again. I think what should I have done, I should have covered this and I will ask the class. Anyways, but I already did this already. Now, mistake 3, solution in disguise. Solution is disguise. So, if you remember the example I gave earlier, while talking about how a research problem should look like, there are some things that are actually problem again. It's looking like a solution. So when you're already giving us solution, then that's not a statement of the problem. That is a statement of solution. if there's anything like that, it should be statement of the problem, not statement of solution. Look at the example here. School needs more computers. This one is not a problem, it's a solution. And say why this is why this is a problem. This state a solution, not a problem. You must first establish what the problem is before proposing solutions. At least tell us the problem first before telling us solution. Abi? Yeah. Problem come before solution. Now, improve example. Say, despite the national ICT policy, 70% students in rural area have never used a computer for learning. This study explores the barrier to computer access and use. Simple. This is a properly written one. Talking about policy, that should be the ideal. Don't forget ideal. Ideal. Though this is not, this is just like written in a sentence, and don't forget, but I'm just trying to say, despite a national ICT policy, 70% of students in rural schools have never used a computer for learning. This study explores the barrier to computer access and learning, right? That's so your statement should not look like a solution in this, like this example here. School needs more computer. We know school needs more computer, but why do school needs more computer? Why? What is the data to prove that they need more computer? What is the reason why you feel like they need more computer? What area, what part of the country, or what part of your area of your research, don't even call it country, because you cannot do research the whole of the country. What part of the area of your study needs a computer? You can see this one is more specific now, saying that 70% of ICT, 70% of students in rural areas have not used computer for learning before. So apparently, this person has done the proper homework by discovering that people in rural area are the ones experiencing this problem. People in urban areas are not really feeling it. So if we need to do more computer, if we need to get more computers for school, if school needs more computer, then students in rural areas should be the beneficiaries. Examples like that. Now I said the study explores the barrier to computer access and use. That's common mistake 3. Let's go to common mistake 4. No evidence. Yes, this is another problem that people put in their statement of problem. There is no evidence. There's no evidence to prove the problem is actually existing. And if you look at the example, let me take it up a little bit from common mistake 1. Common mistake 1, if you read it, it shows something like 45% to 32% over 3 years. Look at that though. Look at the next one. Preliminary interviews suggest that, so that means the person has done like a background check already. Preliminary interview suggests that low salary, lack of resources, poor administrative support. You can see that. Now look at the third one here. It says, despite the national ICT policy, 70% of students in rural area. So there should be evidence to prove that your problem is actually existing. Now let's go to example 4. Like I said, no evidence. Many students are failing. That is vague. That is too broad. Because how many is vague? Many is broad. How can you tell us that there are many? What if it's just 2% out of 100%? That's not many now. But since you're saying many now, we don't know, maybe it's actually many, or you're lying, or you're giving us number. So why many is vague, claims must be supported with data, statistics, or cited sources. In fact, I will not say I'm cited sources. I think I will edit this later. And cited sources. You should cite if you should cite what actually justify the problem. Like I said, your statement of problem is justifying the problem. So look at the example here. It says, according to WAEC 2023, the failure rate in English language among students in Oyo State increased from 38% to 52% between 2019 and 2023. This is a properly written one with evidence. You can't just tell us that students are failing. They failed, but how much have they failed? How many percent failed? Because actually, in the real sense, for a general exam like that, let's say for WAEC, for instance, everybody cannot pass it. Let's be honest. We cannot get 100% pass. Pass, I mean not, don't let me say pass. Let me just say 100% excellent results. Not everybody will get A. Trust me, not everybody will get B. Not everybody will get C. something like that. But if you are now having more of D, E, F than A, B, C, and that cause for concern. But let's just put it this way. Let's say 98% got A, B, or C. Only 2% got D, E, and F. That's not a failure. That's if you look at the people that feel that, that might be because they didn't prepare, maybe for whatever reason. It might not be the exam body, it might not even be school. It might just be the student on their own. Or no, that might be another certainly anyways. But I'm just trying to say that it doesn't have to be the whole 100, right? You are not perfect, you are not God, whatever. So, but in this context here, coming back to this example here, say, according to WAEC 2023, the failure rate in English language among students in Oyo State increased from 38% to 52% from 2019 to 2023. That is the statement of the problem. That is calling for concern. So that means the thing is increasing every year. That means we need to do something about it so it won't keep on increasing. Don't forget the ISIG model. Okay, we are moving forward. Okay, okay, I'm not supposed to, I will delete this later. Now, step-by-step guide, I'll just go over the step-by-step guide again on writing your problem. Identify a broad area of interest, narrow the focus, you have to read literatures, gather evidence of the problem, like data, statistics, observation, write using the ISIG model. Don't forget the ISIG model I gave us earlier, refine and get feedback for peer supervisor. Okay, this is just a guide too. Now, I'll give us a good or bad example here. Look at this here. This says, technology is not used well in schools. Technology is not used well in schools. This study will look at how to improve technology use. This is a problem statement, but not properly written. Now, look at the one on the other side. Using the ISIG model, says the national ICT policy mandates technology integration in school. That is the ideal, right? Then the actual says only 12. So at the ideal, don't forget the idea is what should be happening, right? And that's what national ICT policy says. Now, the actual says only 12% of teachers use digital tools in lessons. Of course, this is cited FME 2022. So that means there is only, this is what is actually happening. Ideal is what should be happening. Actual is what is currently happening. So it says only 12% of teachers use digital tools in lesson, right? Then the issue is students miss critical digital literacy skills needed for 21st century. Yes, because teachers are not doing their job properly, or let me say only 12% are using it, students are the one at the receiving end. Like I said, the issue means that if we keep on doing it like this, what will be happening? So it says students miss critical digital literacy skills for the 21st century skills. Now, goal, the study identified barriers to technology integration in Lagos public schools. So that is a framework following the ISIG model. Now, I will just, in our classwork, because I'll be preparing our mind right now for classwork. In our classwork, we're going to do how will I call it, a statement of the problem of 4 paragraphs. And going to follow this model. So let's write that at the back of our mind because we're going to be doing that. Now, I don't know the model we're going to do. Maybe we're going to submit it before the class ends. Maybe I'll open the floor for Mr. Taiwo to talk later. Okay. Okay, let me pause it. Mr. Taiwo, are you with us, sir? Mr. Taiwo, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you, sir. Good evening, sir.
Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I want to pause here for a while. I'm looking at the modus operandi how we can do the classwork and assignment later self. So I want you to give suggestions if you have contributions to what I've done so far.
All right, thank you so much. I think I enjoyed the class, and I even typed it on our group chat that for anybody that misses today's class, the person is wrong because you are well detailed and you come down to our level. Thank you so much, sir. So that being said, I think the only thing left out is that you did not hammer on the fact that, though in your own examples, you have been using intercitations, especially to support the facts and figures in your examples. So the only thing left out is that they should all understand that when they are explaining using the framework you have given to us, which is, I think, IGSE, they should make sure that any facts or statements that they are making that is affirmatively, they should back it up with in-text citations. And not just any in-text citations. They should use in-text citations that are verifiable. That if I'm your reader and I want to be sure you know what you are doing, if I type that in-text citation out, I'm going to see that exact information, that exact figure that you are giving me. I'm going to see it there because that is what is pointing to your research being true, that you are actually targeting solving a particular problem. And also that in-text citation must be locally, it must be a local source, because you cannot say you want to solve a problem in Lagos State, for instance. The problem is particular to Lagos State. I think you mentioned this, but just to add more, you cannot say you want to solve a problem in Lagos State and you will not be using an in-text citation that is talking about Kaduna, Kano, or even eastern parts. Nigerian problem, when it comes to secondary school, we should all realize that, or we should all be reminded that secondary school is being run by state government, not federal government. Though federal government can have their own school settings at secondary school level, but majorly it is the work of state government. What do I mean by this? That means each state have their own unique characteristics. So if you are focusing on a state, make sure that you support your statement with a local source that are particular to that state, not general Nigeria. If you are working on the whole of Nigeria, good, you will see a lot. But if you are working on a particular state, make sure your in-text citation is coming from that state. I think that is just what I needed to add. Then secondly, regarding your question about how we are going to do the assignment, to me, I think we should after your class, you can give them your question, but we should allow them to at least go with this slide. You can send this, please send us this slide later after the class. Let them go over the class, check the slide also, then work on the assignment. Because as they are just hearing most of these things. Even me, I'm just hearing the framework. The one that I'm using before is quite different from but I think this one that you are giving us tonight is very simple and straightforward, which I'm going to adopt. So I'm also waiting for you to send the framework to the group so that I can read again, listen to the class again, and I will also do the assignment. So I think we should rather make it assignment instead of classwork to allow them to digest.
Okay, that's not a problem. I will send the slides to the group after this class. I'll send the slides to the group. Okay, we are going to use an assignment then. Okay, what I will do is this, to make it easy for everybody. I'll just give us a particular slide topic. Then we are going to write a statement of the problem using the model, like I said, and with everything Mr. Taiwo have said, because yes, citation is important. I mentioned citation too, but I didn't dwell much on it, like I said.
Citation is like and you are following. You are stating a problem. You need to narrow it down to constructing the statement of problem.
Yeah.
I'll be sending the
Yes, sir. Before we move on, please, you need to attend to what doctor said. It's very important, because what I'm trying to say, which I believe you will explain more to our listeners, is that when you are quoting fact and figures in your statement of the problem, look at the one you did when you said only 12%. Is a fact.
Yes.
That is when that in-text citation is needed in your statement of the problem, and that is what I was referring to. Please expatiate on that for our listeners also.
Okay.
Again, please.
Like this example here in the actual, like I said, following the framework I said, ISID model. In the what is happening, like this example is showing here, it says only 12% teachers use digital tools in lessons. The ideal is that the national ICT policy mandates technology integration in schools. So now you're saying only 12% teachers use digital tools in lessons. So you need to show us where it is actually showing that 12% teachers are using it, because you can't just assume 12%. Where do you get that 12% from? That is why this one is having this FME 2022. It's showing that, okay, where this particular 12% came up from. I'm not just looking up this 12% for you. Like, I think I gave an example earlier here. Let me just go up a little bit so I'll find it. Try to look for an example here. If I get it later, let me just go back. So that is why this one is cited. But let me just, like I said, back to what I was saying, I will give us a research topic. We are going to do it as an assignment, but I will like us to be, so for us to follow up the and be faithful to the assignment. The assignment will not be closing till next week. The closing, so I'll give us to Wednesday, Thursday. I think we should just choose one day. I will choose Wednesday. Let me choose Thursday. Thursday, our class, our assignments rather, will be closing on Thursday. On Thursday night by 8 p.m. So I will type the research topic, like I said. We are going to write a statement of the problem using the ISIG model, like I said, and everybody will submit. I will drop my email address on the group chat. I will do that tonight. The topic, what we are doing, and my email address. You do your statement of the problem and send it to the email address. So that's our assignment for today. Okay. So I'm going to open a Google Drive. I will send the link to the group. So when you are done with your own, like you are going to put it in a document form, then you send it to the Google Drive. You are going to upload this to the Drive. So that's that. Any other addition from anybody or any other question? Any other addition from anybody or any other question?
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
I want to appreciate you, sir.
Okay, ma'am.
We appreciate if I can get previous classes. This is my first time of joining the class. So going with assignment for the first time, I think it's not too fair. I said this is my first class. And so going with assignment, I said I will appreciate if previous classes slides can be sent for somebody like me joining for the first time. So going with assignment will be unfair on my side if I don't have access to previous one. You refer that I should watch YouTube, but beyond YouTube, I need something else too.
The slide for the previous classes, Abby?
Yes, sir.
I will chat you personally. I'll chat you privately.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And then do you have the link to our YouTube, ma'am?
I'm not sure.
Ma'am?
I'm not sure about that, please.
Okay, I will send you the link also to the. I will chat you personally this night.
You can send me the link too.
No wala. I will chat you privately.
All right, thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Any other question from anybody? Any other addition from anybody?
Thank you, well done.
Mr. Taiwo, any other addition from you, sir?
Yeah, that's all for me. I think we are good. We are good. Let them work on the assignment first. Then we know where to either to move on to something else or we are good.
Okay. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you very much for today. I will send the slide and the assignments later today, but I will do that after the class. Thank you.